episode are we doing? Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Creative Naturally podcast. My name's Bex and I'm your host. It's so lovely that you could come back for this 21st episode. And yeah, it's been 2 weeks since I last recorded, so I'm quite happy to be able to fit a last minute podcast while I'm here in the UK at my mum's house. You would have seen a little snippet of the view I'm looking at in the intro of this video. I'm hoping that the audio will be alright because it's quite windy outside. It's beautiful and blue skies but very windy. So fingers crossed I'll be able to fix any audio issues in post-production. So yeah, welcome to everybody who is returning, who's watched before. It's so lovely to see you guys again, and also welcome to any newcomers to this podcast. It's so lovely that you could come and hang out with me today. My name's Bex or Rebecca, and I am currently in my mum's house in the moors in England, in northern England. But I actually live in Melbourne, Australia, so we'll be flying back to Melbourne almost this time next week, actually, which is pretty exciting. So we'll be going back to autumn in Melbourne from a very springy England, and I'm not sad in the slightest. I'm really excited to go back. It's been lovely to visit here, but it's been a long time. We left Australia on the 6th of February, I think, so it's been a long time since I've been home. If I look down, I'm looking at my show notes. So what am I wearing? I am wearing it's called this. I think it's spelled Smaragd Pullover, and it's by Svetlana Volkova. So the Smaragd or something similar, and it's a cardigan pattern, but I've turned it into a pullover. I'll give you a close-up, actually I'll insert a video here of me wearing this piece. So yeah, it's such a beautiful jumper. I actually knit this out of 2 skeins of Manos del Uruguay Fino, which is their like super fine merino and silk blend. It's really beautiful. It's a non-superwash yarn, and it's quite fragile in its own way. It's very fluffy, so it's not really the best for garments, I would say. I think it'd probably be better for accessories, but I had 2 skeins and I really wanted a sweater out of this. It's incredibly soft. It's like a cloud, you would not believe. And this yarn company works with, it's kind of like a new age cottage industry basically. So they hire local people, and it's very fair trade, and they do a really good job. So they're based out of Uruguay. And yes, this jumper took 2 skeins of the brass button colourway, and it has this beautiful, beautiful lace yoke. I'm very, very happy with it. So I did 3/4 length sleeves in the hope to get the body as long as possible, and it actually went a lot further than I was expecting. I was thinking I might get kind of a cropped, it's already quite cropped, but like a properly at the waist cropped jumper, which I do sometimes wear with dresses and things, but this length is a bit more kind of accessible to wear with jeans as well. So yeah, I'm really happy with this, and this was a finished object from the last podcast. I feel like I'm talking really quickly, so I'm going to slow down a bit. I'm a bit nervous. I'm just drinking some good old-fashioned, I think it's Twinings Organic Earl Grey, in this lovely little mug with blue glazed birds all over it. So yes, that is what I'm wearing, and this is in honour of if you guys are on Instagram or following along in the social medias, it's so from the 1st of May all the way through to the end of May is Me Made May, basically. So it's people are taking photos of themselves, and every day they're wearing something that they've made. Some people are even wearing whole outfits of clothing that they've made, which is like my aim. It's so cool. So if you do want to check out Me Made May, do go and look at the hashtags. I think MMMAY17 is one of the hashtags, but any of Me Made May or Me Made May 17 or Me Made MMMAY17, you can see some amazing homemade garments, sewn, knitted, the full caboodle, crocheted, and it's really inspiring to be making more clothes. What is my hair doing? Oh my gosh. Alright, so yes, that is what I have been wearing, and I will show you some of the lovely things I've been knitting. I haven't been doing any other crafts other than knitting. I really want to do some sewing when I get back to Melbourne, once we've found a house to live in and all that good stuff. But for the moment, all my works in progress are knitted, and I will show you what I've been making. So it's been around about 2 weeks since I last recorded, and I've been getting quite a lot of knitting done. I'm really excited to show you what I've been making. The first thing that I will show you is, I think it's living in this bag. Yes, so it's living in this beautiful project bag by my friend Emily, who is Maker on Etsy. You can check her out. This is a really beautiful Rifle Paper Co. Fabric, and it's this really lovely linen blend. It's very nice and thick and sturdy, and she made me this amazing project bag as a Christmas gift with a matching little accessories pouch, which I actually have all of my hair stuff in at the moment. So inside this lovely bag is my Dawe pullover, which is a pattern by Amy Miller, and it's a really beautiful pattern. I'll actually put a photo here of what the garment looks like. So it is a pullover with a completely different construction to what I'm used to. I'm used to a lot of raglan pullovers and also kind of circular yoked pullovers. I've never done anything with this kind of construction before. And the Dawe pullover has a kind of, it's a set-in sleeve construction, and it's knitted flat partly, but you're kind of picking up instead of seaming at the end. And I have got quite a lot of progress done in the last couple of weeks on this. I have not been monogamously knitting on this at all, but I have had quite a lot of knitting time. So as you can see here, this is I'm using a 4-ply yarn with, let me have a look, 3.5mm needles. So it's quite a loose gauge, but the yarn that I'm using is rather fluffy, so it's going to have a really beautiful texture. This is the last of the first skein that I have, and I've got 4 skeins in total. And the yarn that I'm using is Blacker Yarns Tamar Luster blend, which is a 4-ply, and it says 100% pure new wool. And this is the Ottery colourway, which I think is one of their natural blends. It's beautiful, kind of browny grey neutral tone. Of all the greys, this is my favourite by far. Like the warm kind of browny greys just suit me a lot better than the kind of harsh white greys. And yeah, I'm completely in love with this yarn. It is phenomenally sheddy, So if you don't like using sheddy yarns, where if you kind of sneeze a lot, if you get fluff up your nose and things like that when you're knitting, then this would not be the yarn for you, because I don't know if you can see that halo there, but it is so fluffy. But it's actually surprisingly soft. It's definitely a low processed, like rustic yarn, but it is surprisingly soft. It does still have some guard hairs in there. You can see the kind of halo that it has, but I think especially once it has been blocked, it's just going to bloom beautifully. And I will wear this with, it's a layering piece, I will wear it with a long sleeved shirt underneath, I think. So construction wise, I'll show you the front side. This up here is going to be the base for the neck, and then this here is the shoulder, this here is the arm shaping, and then from here onwards it's got this beautiful moss stitch border. I don't know if you can see that very well, there we go. A moss stitch border that runs alongside, and it's basically straight down, there's no shaping from below the underarm. And then yeah, you do some of this will be seamed, and then from the waistline it is open, and it leaves these two slits on either side so you can see your layer below. And I really like the idea of having a garment like that. Something that's quite loose and quite baggy, and then is a layering piece basically. I think that'd be really nice over jeans with just a simple jersey top underneath, and a really kind of wearable piece for me. Yeah, I want to be more mindful of the shapes of garments that I'm making, so that I can really see how they would fit in my wardrobe. I think that's something that's so inspiring about Me Made May, actually. Is just seeing how everybody wears their clothing that they've made, because it can be hard sometimes to know how to style it best. And yeah, I'm really enjoying this so far. I'm at around about 12 inches, and I've got another 2 inches, I think, before I start the hem. And then I'll be doing the sleeves and the front. But that's going really well, and it's actually knitting up pretty fast, which it's just really easy. I can listen and watch podcasts and knit away, and all I need to do is just remember to moss stitch between these areas here. And yeah, again, this is the yarn that I'm using, and I love it. I'm a big fan of blacker yarns, they're fantastic. I think I heard about them. Yeah, I think I heard about them from Melody of the Mandarines podcast. She really she uses them quite regularly for her design work, and I started following along on their Instagram, and then got this for my birthday from my mum. So I'm in love, and it's not so often I get to use English yarns really, because I live almost all the time in Australia, and it's really expensive postage to Australia, as you can imagine. So I am knitting this. Oop, I've lost my wool. I'm knitting this on my higher interchangeable set. These are just the regular ones, and they are a little bit annoying sometimes that if you're doing lace, for me anyway, if I'm working on lace projects, I'm less likely to use these, and I'm more likely to use my Knit Pro Novas. They're a little bit sharper. I would like to try some of the bigger sized, higher sharp interchangeable needles. You can see there. So this section here screws on and off, and you have different cables. And this is the 3.5mm, and I think I'm using a 80cm cable, I would say. I think it says actually on their cable. 24 inch, I think it's about an 80cm. So, anything more to say about this? Oh yes, so I've used the higher sharps once before. I purchased a sock needle, so I used 2.5mm 80cm sock needles, and I realised that I push with my index finger to bring the needle through, and it was actually like creating I have a callus on my finger from it. It was actually poking me and making me bleed because they're so sharp, which is amazing to have sharp needles when you're sock knitting, but not so amazing when you're making yourself bleed. So I ended up passing those on to a friend, and I kind of said no more to higher sharps, and that they weren't for me, but actually I think they'd probably be slightly less sharp in the bigger sizes, and maybe just the sock needles weren't for me. So I would like to actually get a pair and try them out, give them a go. I've completely lost my ball of wool. There we go. Yeah, and now my entire screen is covered in fluff from this wool. It's so funny. It's funny. I really did think it had a mohair in it when I first picked it up, because it was so fluffy. But yeah, I think it's just, is it a worsted spun when it's, yeah, I think it's worsted spun. when it's quite loosely spun, so the fibres will come out more easily. The second work in progress that I'm working on is living over here on Project Bagless, and these are the cutest thing in the history of the universe. Don't know if you can see that. It's a little one-legged pair of leggings. I've got a very long needle hanging out here, but these are the Clover tights by Knitting for Olive, which is a designer on Ravelry. And here we go. I'll move these so they don't jangle around. Yeah, as you can see, they've got this really beautiful eyelet detail running all the way through. And I've actually adjusted the pattern so that they don't have the feet on them, just so that they might last a little bit longer. But they do come with the pattern is for a foot, like a foot added to the legging. They also have this really sweet little picot hem, which is actually the cast on edge. And I am procrastinating from doing the second leg, basically. It just needs to be, it's very simply knit really, but I've just procrastinated against it. I haven't knit on these for probably about a week, but they're so sweet. It's actually a really good construction of the pattern. They have, it's not straight up and down, there is a lot of shaping in here, so they have short rows at the back to raise the butt section up higher, and they also have a kind of an increased section at the butt to add some space for a cloth diaper or a nappy of your choosing. And I've made some adjustments. So I'll tell you first what I'm knitting this out of. This is the Drops Fable, and the colour is 111, which is their mustard colourway. And I knit all of this in almost exactly one 50-gram ball. So this is the other 50-gram ball. So I'm hoping I'll have a little bit left over to make a matching pixie hat out of, I'm thinking. So, about this pattern. I have got a little pet peeve about patterns that don't walk you through a lace design. I feel like if you're going to kind of make people read their knitting and basically superimpose a lace pattern onto a really quite multi-dimensional design with lots of shaping, then you need to say that in the pattern description, because I managed to do this, but I have been knitting for a few years now, and I do my things regularly that I enjoy, and it's not always so much kind of lace work, but I would say that I was relatively proficient in lace patterns. Like, I made this jumper and it's got a lace yoke and things like that. This pattern expects you to basically superimpose a simple eyelet lace design onto a pattern which has a lot of shaping. So you basically have to guess where the eyelet flowers are going to fit in and where they're going to go for big parts of this pattern. At the beginning it's quite simple because it's almost like a rectangle, but then here you're doing increases at the butt and you're adding in eyelet flowers where they fit, and also in the leg it doesn't tell you where the eyelets should go, and you're kind of just working with decreases on this section here. You can see it's actually quite heavily shaped, so I think there should be a lot more. It's a paid for pattern, and it's quite an expensive paid for pattern, and I feel like there should be a lot more information included, and if it isn't included, then it should be really heavily stated in the description that you should know how to read your knitting, and you should be comfortable with putting a lace pattern into a three-dimensional piece, because that wasn't clear at all in the description. Now, I know that that would be tricky to write a pattern like that, but people do that. It just takes more time. So yeah, it did annoy me a little bit, and I did make a comment on the pattern just to let people know that it's a beautiful pattern, but it doesn't include It doesn't walk you through it, basically. It doesn't kind of hold your hand through the whole pattern with the lace and everything. So I think it's important that people do know that before they purchase and be willing to do that, basically. But that being said, it is such a beautiful, sweet design. I love the kind of artistic design of it. It's so sweet. And they are coming out really beautifully. Yeah, so I'm knitting it out of some Drops Fable. It's quite a cheap sock yarn that I picked up from a tiny little yarn store that's mainly acrylic yarns and things like that in my mum's local town. So this is the closest to a nice wool that they had. And I think it's working out beautifully. And this is for the first baby knit for a very sweet little baby niece that's due in August. And she is due to arrive to my boyfriend's brother and his girlfriend. So that's very, very exciting. And one of the first generation, the next generation. So yeah, I'm going to be an auntie, which is very exciting. And this baby is going to be very well knitted for because both her parents knit ferociously. So I'm very excited about these and I know that they'll love them. Super cute. So that is the second work in progress that I'm working on. Okay, so the third work in progress that I'm working on is... let's pick one up from over here. These are my Planum socks, which is a pattern by Clare Devine. Let's see if I can make these more easily shown. I am knitting these out of Gregoria Fibres yarn, which is a wonderful indie dyer, and she naturally dyed this yarn. This is, I think, one of her bases that is now discontinued. Ooh, excuse me. And I think it's a nylon superwash which has been dyed with madder root. It's definitely dyed with madder root, and I'm pretty sure it's a superwash. And these socks are actually going to be for my little sister Miyuki. If you watched the last podcast, you'd notice that these are not the socks that I was showing you. I actually ripped them out and decided to have a go at one of the adult versions of the Planum socks pattern by Clare Devine. Because I had used that pattern last podcast for the little baby socks that I still need to make the second sock of. I've got loads of projects going on at the moment. So I ripped the socks out and I started fresh, and I am making my little sister, who is about size UK 4 feet, so they're pretty small, a pair of Planum socks. And so I have two socks. This one's very wobbly bobbly because it's knit out of tinked back yarn, so the yarn's all crinkly. Tinking back, by the way, if you don't know, is when you kind of pull back your knitting. So you're basically knitting backwards, unravelled. So the yarn, as you can see in the ball, is actually quite crinkly, and it should block out just fine. It has in the past. More so on that side, I would say. And then this sock I've got a little bit further, and I'm actually doing the gusset increases already. So I'll show you how this looks. I don't know if you can see, but you can see the kind of heel is almost starting to be created there, and I'm doing gusset increases at this point. So yeah, that's working out really well. I love the multi-tonal colours of this yarn. It's so beautiful. Really peachy, lovely colour. So I don't know if I probably won't get them done by the time I leave, and I'll just end up posting them back in the care bag for my sister. But yeah, really happy with how those are going, and it's just a nice little project to pick up when I fancy knitting on some socks. It's quite a detailed, basically it takes more time than the Fish Lips Kiss heel, which is what I'm used to, but I have a feeling that the shape just fits so much better. If I look at the baby sock that I made, the shape is just, there's more of a depth to the heel, and I feel like it would probably fit my heel better in the long run, so probably worth putting the time in and doing this version. It's It's kind of like a German short row heel with a gusset increase included. So I'd recommend you guys check out the Planum socks pattern. It was actually recommended to me by Meg of the Mrs. Ooh, I'm going blank. Mrs. M's Curiosity Cabinet, which is a new podcast I'm listening to. And she uses that as her kind of vanilla sock pattern and really enjoys it. So, yes. So, I have one more work in progress, and it's the most exciting one. I cast it on yesterday evening, and I've made some pretty good progress already, actually. This is my Dock Lights, which is a pullover sweater pattern that I have wanted to cast on forever. It's been in my queue for so long. It's a Brooklyn Tweed. I think it's one of the Wool People patterns by Brooklyn Tweed, but it's actually by Julie Hoover. Yeah, Julie Hoover. And I've just come back from Chester, the Chester Shrewsbury area, visiting my dad, and it was his 50th birthday the day before yesterday, and yeah, we went to Shrewsbury on a day trip, and we went and hung out in this beautiful indoor market, and inside that indoor market is a amazing new yarn store called You and Ply. I don't know if you can. These are their details. Just there. Their address is, if you guys are in the local area, you should totally go and check them out. So gallery level Market Hall in Shrewsbury, and the shop is quite small, but it's got the most incredible selection. You can actually check out their website. It's www.eweandply.co.uk. Just there. You and Ply. And they also have an Instagram account as well, so you should check them out. But I was chatting to the lovely I think it's run by two ladies. I'm not sure the name of the lady that I was chatting to, but she was one of the owners, and she was such a lovely woman. I was very happy to buy a jumper's quantity from her. But they had some incredible, like Eden. They had Eden Cottage yarns. They had Manos del Uruguay. They had West Yorkshire spinners. They had like some of the drops yarns was one of their basics range. They had like kits for hats and for amazing shawls. So many hand-dyed skeined yarns you would not believe. It was like heaven. And oh my gosh, I managed to leave with a jumper's quantity, and I could have left with the entire shop. That's all I'm going to say. But I ended up leaving with 7 balls of this amazing yarn. Ooh, it's blowing out. The sun's just gone. I don't know if you can see. There we go. That's better. It's a quite a light teal kind of teal green. It's getting a bit washed out. I'll just move it around a bit until you can kind of see. That's a bit more of an accurate colour. So it's a kind of tealy green. It's quite a bright tealy green, and it's a mixture of like lime green and kind of almost electric blue, then with some deep kind of foresty greens as well, that kind of bring the colours down a little bit. And this is made in New Lanark in their mill, and it's made on It's basically made in a historical mill, so all on the original machinery. It's incredible, and it's one of the, I think it's a World Heritage site. Yeah, produced at New Lanark on historical machinery. Thank you for your support. You can actually check them out. So they have a shop. It's called www.newlanarkshop.co.uk. So www.newlanarkshop.co.uk, and I think you can purchase wool through them. And this is their Aran weight, and the colourway is SH Woodland, which made me laugh because it's basically woodland, which I think is really sweet. A quiet woodland. And there are 160 metres on here. It's an Aran weight yarn, and it's a hand wash. It's rustic, like it's pleasantly scratchy. It's almost got that kind of cottony feel to it, and it's very lofty and bouncy. Love it. And it's a good kind of, I would say it's a light worsted, like a really good chunky DK 10-ply. That was too many American chunky. You don't say chunky next to DK, do you? But it's yeah, it's a reasonable sized 8-ply to 10-ply, I would call it. And this is what I am making my dock lights out of. So I bought 7 balls of this, and it's 160 meters per ball. And I am about halfway through my first ball at the moment. And this is where I am. So this is how it's knitting up at the moment. I'll try and squish it out a little bit so you can see. It's really beautiful and chunky, and it's going to be a nice thick jumper, winter jumper. So it has this big chunk of, it's about 2 inches of rib, and then it goes into this mixture of a lace pattern, kind of like ribs of lace mixed in with brioche. I'll actually insert a picture here of the finished garment. So yeah, it's a mixture of lace and brioche, and it's very squishy. So I decided that I was going to make, let me just check what size. I'm actually making the 42 3/4 inch version. I'm kind of between sizes, and looking at people's patterns, projects on Ravelry, I so much prefer the projects that have more positive ease with this pattern, because it is so kind of squishy. I feel like it needs to be a bit oversized for it to be flattering, especially on my shape. I really don't want it kind of like sticking to my lumps and bumps. So I really preferred the oversized versions. So I'm a 36 inch bust, and in the pattern pictures, the Brooklyn Tweed pattern pictures, the model had 5 inches of positive ease, and I really liked that fit on her. It's going to look totally different to me because she's like a size 8 and I am like a size 12 to 14. But yeah, I think it will be really nice, and it will be really lovely over jeans, and I love this colour. So I'm hoping I've chosen the right size and it won't go too crazy with the being too big. We shall see. I've also been really naughty and I didn't do a swatch. So I'm living dangerously, and it's all my fault if I have to rip out the whole thing. So yeah, I know you're all screaming at me through the computer, but I didn't do a swatch, I'm going to be honest with you. So yeah, this is my final work in progress. And I'm actually I took a little video, and I'm hoping that I can pop that video from my phone onto this podcast. I have had trouble with uploading phone videos to iMovie, so fingers crossed, if you see a video here, it will be of the You and Ply yarn shop. Just a little brief clip of that, me walking around. So next is General Waffle, and this is a complete steal from Katie of Inside Number 23, by the way. If you do have a alternative name for this section, please let me know. I feel a bit mean stealing her General Waffle title. Okay, so consulting my notes, I've got a few things I want to chat with you guys about. The first one is a podcast recommendation that I've actually already talked about on this episode. I recently found out about a new audio podcast, and it is called Mrs. M's Curiosity Cabinet. So that's MRS and then M and then Curiosity Cabinet. And how would you describe it? The person who created the podcast is called Meg, and she's based in London. She's a lovely lady. And I just loved listening to her first 2 episodes. They were amazing. She hasn't put one out in the last couple of weeks, I don't think. I haven't seen any new episodes. I'm really hoping that she does one soon, because I love listening to her, and we've connected on social media, and it's so lovely to follow what she's been making. She has a real kind of emphasis on like natural fibres and kind of natural coloured yarns and naturally dyed yarns. She has that kind of earthy, ethical vibe to her, which I am really just into. I love it. I don't always stick to it by any means. I'm a big fan of superwash yarn that you can shove in the washing machine, but I do know that it's a really good idea for the knitting community to embrace more natural processes for their fibres. So it's really amazing to hear her talking about that and be inspired, basically. And she's very creative in many different aspects of her life. She loves to cook and she loves to garden. I think she's quite an avid organic gardener, and so I just am so excited to find out more about her life and her interests. So you should definitely go and check her out. I think you can access the podcast through loads of different means. I listen to it on my iPad, just under the podcasts app. But yeah, I think you'd be able to find it on iTunes as well. I'm pretty sure it's available there. So that's my podcast recommendation, and that's Mrs. M's Curiosity Cabinet. You should totally go and check her out. And you should also go and find her on Instagram as well. She's got a lovely feed. The second thing that I wanted to talk to you about was Me Made May, and specifically some things that I'm really wanting to create this month, if I can. It's a crazy month for me. We'll be getting back to Australia on I think we'll be there on the 13th. And then we'll be up at Tom's parents' place for a couple of weeks, probably, just doing some work, some cleaning work and some maintenance work back at the cherry shed that we were working at to fund this trip, and just to make some money, basically. Some quick money, and then we'll be trying to find a house. So who knows if this will happen, but if it doesn't happen in May, hopefully it will happen in June, when we're a bit more settled. But there's a few patterns that I really want to knit and also sew. I haven't sewn for ages and I really want to sew. So there are 4 patterns that I want to tell you about. The first one is the Deschain pattern by Leila Raabe. I'll pop in a picture here of the piece. So it's a Templi linen blend, boxy, lacey pullover. And I just think this would work so perfectly well in my wardrobe. I wear a lot of kind of tunics and dresses, and also kind of dresses over leggings and jeans, and I just feel like this would be such an amazing layering piece to go over the clothes that I already have in my wardrobe. It's knitted, and I have a feeling it'll probably knit up pretty quick because it is on I think it's 6mm needles. I love this black version, but I have in my stash some cream, it's the Portuguese brand. I'm completely blanking on the name. I'll write it down below just here. But I have, I think, about 4 balls, 800 meters, something like that, of Templi linen in a cream colour that I'm thinking probably would make quite a cool version of this. So I think I might do that, and then I would really like to have, to buy this yarn, this specific yarn. I want to have this I want this exact garment, basically. So I'd love to invest in some of this beautiful black, kind of grey-black slatey linen that she's using. The next thing that actually the next 3 things are sewing related, The first one is the Zinnia skirt, which is a pattern by Colette Patterns. I'll pop in a picture here. And the Zinnia skirt is a really beautiful full gathered skirt with pockets, high-waisted, sits at your natural waist and then has pockets and buttons down the front, and that's just like a perfect garment for me. I would love that. It'd be really beautiful with, like, this top, for instance, would be perfect with a matching skirt like that. I'd love to have to purchase this pattern and make a million of these skirts. So the next pattern is the Coco dress, which is a stretched jersey pattern, I'm pretty sure, by Tilly and the Buttons, which is another indie pattern designer that I really love. And the Coco dress is kind of like a A-line dress and top pattern. Quite a simple design, but I just think it'd be such a good staple in my wardrobe. Yeah, it's got a really kind of vintage shape to it, and it's quite a dramatic shift from the waist to the hip, which really works for me because I do have very much an hourglass figure and a big bum and big hips. So the Coco dress, I think, would be a really good staple in my wardrobe and would just be really great layered with jumpers over the top and things like that. So I have this kind of aim just to create a wardrobe of good basics, basically, because I live in basics, like leggings, jersey tops, jersey dresses. I'm all about comfort. Like, I like to look nice and I like to be colourful, but if it's not comfy, I'm not going to wear it. And finally, the last pattern I wanted to share with you is the sway dress, which is a pattern by Papercut Patterns, another indie designer. And the sway dress is a really beautiful A-line, quite a loose fitting dress, which looks beautiful in linen. I've seen quite a few versions of it in like black linen, and it's just amazing. Again, another really beautiful basic, kind of fits at the bust and then just hangs off of your body, which is actually a shape that kind of works quite well for me. So I definitely want to make this, and I have a feeling I will love it once I've made it. It's that kind of shape. I have quite a lot of garments in that shape that I've bought that I wear a lot. So yes, that is another pattern that I would like to make. And finally, in this general waffle segment, I've got some inspiring words, and I'm so grateful for all of the lovely comments on my most recent podcast where I talked about balanced view, and I had lots of people who were really interested and said that they were actually going to check out the website and things, which is so sweet. But I wanted to share with you this little snippet from one of the balanced view books that I love, and it says, "It is a radical and revolutionary political action to find inner peace within yourself. The greatest revolution is in claiming personal peace for yourself and not giving up until you find that. Your undying commitment to that peace automatically benefits everyone else. You don't have to contrive the action of being of benefit to anyone. You are being of benefit to everyone by finding peace within yourself, and there is nothing more powerful than a sincere personal example. You don't have to launch any grand plans in order to be of benefit to everyone. If nothing else should ever come out of your life then this extraordinary inner peace, then it in itself will be a supreme and sublime accomplishment." And that's basically how I want to live my life. I just love that so much, and I really hope that resonates with you guys as well. I'm sure it will. But I also wanted to share another quote, which is by Wes Angelosi. A friend of mine actually shared this on Facebook. I thought it was so wonderful. Go and love someone exactly as they are, and then watch how quickly they transform into the greatest, truest version of themselves. When one feels seen and appreciated in their own essence, one is instantly empowered. And yeah, so I think those two go so wonderfully together, because it's my opinion that you can't ever completely love someone exactly as they are unless you can do that for yourself. And to learn how to love yourself exactly as you are is something that we're not trained to do as children. We're trained to better ourselves and to not, well, we're basically told we're not good enough constantly. No matter how loving like our school is or our parents are, it's all about being better, being better, being better. And I'm so grateful that I have found grassroots movements which shows me basically how to love myself exactly as I am, and through that I can love other people exactly as they are as well. So yeah, I just wanted to share those words with you. The first one is a quote from a Balanced View book, and I'll pop the link to the movement that I'm part of just below here. You can totally go and check them out. And then the second one was a quote by Wes Angelosi, who I haven't heard of, but I think it's a pretty awesome quote. So yeah, thank you so much for hanging out with me for the last however many minutes that it's been. It's been so wonderful to catch you guys up on what I've been making. I love to read all your comments, and I'm pretty good at responding on YouTube, so please do say hello and check me out on Instagram, Bex_in_real_life. And yeah, if you want any more information about the projects that I'm working on, I do have pattern pages, I think, for all of these projects on my Ravelry. So just under Rebecca SJS on Ravelry, so you can go and check out any of the notes or technical notes or anything like that, any of the details, and there will be all of the notes below this YouTube video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely week of crafting and creating, and yeah.